All right, today we are talking about a very fun topic, and it is also something that I feel is can be kind of divisive in a way, but it's about tarot cards and oracle cards. And I feel like most people fall into one of three categories, and one would be they love them, they use them, it's a great tool, and then we have people that are like interested, but maybe you feel a little unsure of exactly what it is, how to use it. And then we've got a third that I feel is kind of like, ooh, that's like the devil's play. No way, not touching it. And so I invited April on because she and I actually shared a similar experience of growing up, being raised in a church environment, in a religious environment, and being told that it was something that you was a big no-no. And so we just thought we would dive into that topic because why not? Because I feel like people ask me a lot of questions about it when I talk about oracle cards and tarot, and like I want to dive into the difference between the two a little bit too. So, I'm Erica, and this is Powered by Joy podcast. Welcome, and we love to talk about things that help us get unstuck, bring us more joy in our lives, and like feel empowered to make changes and really live the life we want to. And sometimes it just feels hard to do. So we talk about all sorts of things around those topics here. So April is somebody that I met through Magical Universe happenings, and she is an astrologer. She's an astro coach, is what you call it. So that's like coaching people using astrology to help coach people through different areas of life, career, businesses, personal, and also card reading. So I thought, who would be a better person than to talk about it than her? Because she's been on both sides of the fence, right? So welcome,
Yeah.
April.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, Erica. Thank you.
Yes. So I want to dive right in, of course, and I just want you to share about your what your beliefs were and like what you were taught growing up. Like what was your experience when you were,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you. Yes, I was born, raised in a very high demand religion. How about that? Religion.
You say religion or religion?
Right? Could go either way. Um, it was do you want me to say which religion or does it
I,
matter? I
I
can say.
don't care if you don't care.
Okay. The Mormon religion, the LDS.
Okay.
Um, and so much so that actually I'm even like a direct descendant of the prophets. So like three of the prophets were are like grandfathers. So very rigid. My mother is a smith. We'll just put it that way. My mother is a smith,
Okay.
and the smiths are known for their rigidity. So definitely there was this like even performance aspect of it, like, oh, we're Smiths, so we show up this way even more so than like even beyond the rigid teachings that there are. And so my childhood, my the teachings that I was given as a kid, um specifically by my grandpa. My mom actually was more of a chain breaker, so I think she definitely paved the way. She still is active and all of that, but she definitely has like evolved herself in her own beliefs, which was really beneficial for me. However, like grandpa's his messaging was like, we don't even play with face cards. Like, and I didn't ever understand why. I thought it had to do with gambling. I thought it had to do with like sketchy behavior with, I don't know, putting yourself in places that were heathen to the Lord or like I don't even know. But it like even like speed, right? Like face cards weren't even allowed.
Wow.
So
Wow.
like
That's
it
even more
was
extreme than what I grew up with. So yeah, that's pretty extreme.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And but never being told why. Like it was just like, oh, they're bad. They're really bad. They're devil's play. Exactly what you're saying. Like it's just a slippery slope. And that was always the description. It's a slippery slope. And have you heard that one? Was that one?
That was a phrase. That was
So
definitely a phrase. Slippery slope.
the slippery slope.
Everything was a
So,
slippery slope, to be honest. I'm thinking, I think I heard that around sex. I think I heard that around this. I think I
oh,
heard it
no,
around everything. It's like,
for
no,
sure.
start dressing that way. It's a slippery slope to wearing too tight of pants. And you just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, no, but for real, you
Yeah.
just, and you know what is amazing though, is actually when I did get into cards and I feel like I'm skipping a whole bunch, but when I was into card, like I really started to delve into cards, specifically, I remember my husband saying that to me. Well, it feels like a slippery slope. And I said, to where? To where? To God? Because that's where I actually feel more connected. So,
That's
I
all fun.
mean,
Slippery slope to God? Is that a bad
like where,
slope to be on?
right? Right.
Oh, wow.
So, so yes, there was definitely some programming, some education on not doing any cards, not really even understanding, but knowing based on what everybody told me throughout my whole life. And when I say my whole life, like throughout my whole childhood, that cards were bad. They were scary. Um they were satanic, essentially.
Yeah,
So,
that was kind of what I heard was like it opens the door, and you don't want to
yeah.
open the door to that.
Oh, can't do
No,
that.
no, that yeah, because then we're a sinner, and now we're gonna burn in hell. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. So it sounds like similar, but even more extreme because we were able to play with a deck of cards.
I
So,
know. I mean, granted, there were cards in my house at some point, like when I was one of the younger kids. And so just I think in general, people become more lax with their younger children. So there were more cards, and I'm sure it had to do with my older siblings like breaking in my parents. But there was still the messaging there. And in fact, like just another like example. My mom was when she was a teenager, she was a teenager in the 70s, and she had peace sign earrings. And my grandpa like threw a fit because that like equated to like what love, peace. But yet the movement of like the hippie movement, the
Mhm.
and that was not what we're wanted to present ourselves as. So
Yeah, yeah,
um,
that was not a
so
good
yeah,
thing. Yeah, there was too
a lot
much.
of rigid.
Yeah, yeah, that was not a place you wanted to be. So how did you reconcile the different, like as you started to, okay, maybe I should say, at what point did you start, like what made you start trying it as a tool? Like what was your story of starting to play around with this devil's work? Sorry.
It'll never not be funny. It'll
Yeah,
never not be
I
funny.
know.
So yeah, the shift and transition that I had was actually really maybe it is a slippery slope because it was really tricky. It kind of came in
Okay,
the side
they were
door.
right.
Okay. No, but for what happened for me is it was 2020 when
Mm,
COVID happened, everything shut down, and there was so much divisiveness, there we go, divisiveness between people. And I could see this within my family, within my friend groups, within people I know of like this is my truth and this is what everybody needs to do. And then
mm.
somebody on the opposite saying this is what everybody needs to do, and everybody trying to convince everybody else that they're wrong and I'm right.
Yeah, yeah, that was
Yes,
definitely a
right?
thing.
And
Yeah.
and I feel like that's actually kind of the same energy that's happening right now
Hmm.
in,
Hmm.
2025. And but I just like I knew what I believed, but yet at the same time, I could listen to somebody who believed completely opposite of what I believed, and I could see how that was their truth. And I could see
Hmm.
that, like, of course, for what you've experienced in your life, that would make so much sense that this is where you're at. And so, of course, this is right. And of course, I'm right. And of course, you're right. And it's just like all of this. And so I thought, okay, obviously it does no good to be like, hey, here's what I believe and try to convince other people. So I was like, what can I do that can, because I felt heavy. I felt so heavy with the energy of the collective. The fear, the collective fear felt really, really intense.
Mhm.
And I just knew that like every time I got on my phone, the news, social media, it didn't matter where I went. It was like a constant barragement. I am the words I'm using are like almost there, but I'm not sure they're where I
Garage,
Barrage. Thank
maybe.
you.
Oh, this reminds me of you and your sister finishing each other's. This is
Erica,
that.
you're my sister. I need you as my sister.
I'll just fill in.
Thank you.
For Alina.
Like she meant this word. The what she said
Edit
was
on the screen. She meant this.
true. It's like I get too excited and it goes and it's like close, but not quite. Um, but it was just like a constant barrage, thank you, of just heaviness. And so I thought, okay, I understand energy enough. I understand frequency enough that I know that if I raise my frequency, that actually affects the collective.
Mhm.
So I was like, okay, what am I going to do to raise my frequency? So I started reading books that were well very much like spiritual books but and not just religious books but spiritual books.
Mhm.
And it just the words, the messages were so like soul filling, like felt so good. I think I started out with I think Kyle Gray's like 111 ways to raise your, it was like raise your vibration or something like that from
Mhm.
Hay House. And so once I read that, I was like, oh, I love this. And it kind of became an experiment for me. And I was reading books and finding these wonderful authors that really just had these beautiful messages. And lo and behold, a few of them had card decks. And
Mhm.
I did not equate them to the devil work that was what my childhood taught me to believe because I was already reading these authors' words and that they were beautiful and absolutely like the trajectory of God. It was love. It was
More
it was
unifying and
yes, it was
acceptance and kindness and compassion. Yeah.
yes, all of the best messages
Yeah.
that Jesus himself taught. So it's
Yeah.
like perfect. This is feels so aligned.
Mhm.
So I got their card decks and I remember like going through the guidebooks and reading the cards and being like loving them, absolutely loving them. And and then but not knowing like how to actually work with them. It would be like, okay, like pick a card and then I'd read the guidebook and it'd be like, oh, this feels so good. I love this. And I'd think about it and I'd meditate with it. But then feeling like, oh, my husband was having a rough day and being like, okay, pick a card. And he definitely was very much like skeptical of it, really. Because again, I said it before, he was like, this feels like a slippery slope. And it was like, to where? Because I'm feeling really good. I feel actually way more connected to God than I have
Mhm.
in a really long time from going to church every week and from service and doing all of the things that I was taught to do. I
Mhm.
I actually feel a connection here. And so beautiful thing was is I had gotten a few decks. And one of the first ones I got was the spirit animal deck. So like no one can say no to animal. It's just like, oh, what does this animal have for me? So that's kind of how I side doored him, actually. He didn't see it coming. It was the spirit animals. So and then my kids, even to this day, like I know that this is a podcast, so you can't really see, but if you have YouTube or
Yeah,
all and all
it's on YouTube too. So people
okay,
listening there
perfect.
can go over to YouTube if you want to see her cool arrangement in her office of
Yes.
many decks of the cards.
And I switch them out. So I put these shelves up because for a long time they were in like a box, but now this is like a way that I can like feel into like what I want to work with.
Yeah.
But to this day, my kids will ask to pull a card, and I say, okay, pick a deck. And a lot of them will pick, I have
Hmm.
5 kids, so to say a lot of them actually that is accurate. We'll say, we'll ask for the spirit animals because there is just this like, of course, a deer, I can understand the message from a deer because I can see a deer and feel that way. Of course, I'd
Hmm.
understand the message of a bunny rabbit, so it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
So, I ended up just wanting, so I am an astrologer, so I do tend to like look for answers and connect things through astrology, but I do have a Virgo moon. So I want to understand the whole, and I want to learn everything I can. Plus I have a lot of learning energy type stuff. So
Okay.
I was like, I gotta know, I gotta be certified in this. So I I gotta understand what I'm doing. If I'm gonna tell people about this, I gotta actually know what I'm telling them.
Okay.
So I ended up getting certified as a card reader, and actually it was all oracle cards, by the way. I just
Okay. I
wanted
was
to
just
say
going to ask you, were you certified in reading tarot cards or oracle cards?
yes.
It
So
was
it was,
oracle.
well, at first I only got oracle because I very much understood that tarot was
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah.
So oracle was okay, terrible bad.
Did the
And
same thing.
uh
Like, well, I'll get an oracle deck, but I'm not touching that.
so true though.
I'm
So
still, yeah, I'm still a good girl. I'm not touching.
I'm worthy. I'm worthy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't say anything.
Hilarious.
But it was a card reading
Okay.
certification. So it just said card reading, and there was a whole section on tarot. And so it was like, I did everything else, but to certify, you have to do the whole thing.
Hmm.
So I got to the tarot lesson, and really it was giving this history of tarot and how it actually did start as like a playing deck, but yet um moved into more of symbolic language of through the visual representation on the card. And so then it could be an intuitive practice because of what the symbolic energy was, like what you were picking up from the art on the card. And I was like, oh my gosh. Okay, so fun fact, I have a degree in art history. I got my bachelor's degree in art history. And so I was just like, this is my training. I literally look at art and look at the symbolism and find meaning in art. And
Hmm.
that's what this is. That's what this is.
Action.
And so and then I had the realization that like, oh, this actually is a tool that helps people go to God through themselves. They go inward to go upward.
Okay.
And obviously in the Middle Ages when the Catholic Church and all like when religion was a very much you go outside, you have to go to the leader to be saved. They would not want anything that told you that you could find God inside yourself.
You need to go through
So
them. You need to, they were your
exactly.
access.
Yes, your access point to God could only be through someone else. So therefore, plus the church. So therefore, we had to vilify everything that made it so that you could access God inside yourself. And I just genuinely think that it was the traditions of our fathers, that it was like it became this the propaganda was tarot cards are evil, bad, and will take you to Satan because we can't actually request money from people who are finding God outside of our church. So and I just think that that is what ended up happening. And it just perpetuated over the hundreds of years. And because again, I knew they were bad, I did not know why. And no one knew why. No one knew why, other than they were satanic. And I actually had do you want me to just keep going?
Might as well. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because, okay, so then I got into the cards and I was like, these are amazing. The tarot is I mean, oracle cards can I tell the difference between oracle cards and
That was one
tarot?
of my questions.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So the difference is oracle cards are 100% based on the author. It can be a specific theme. It can have as many or as little cards as they want. They get to literally just create a deck that has to do with whatever they want, essentially. And there's no structure or framework or anything like that. Where tarot, there is a framework. There's always 72 cards. 78. Oh my gosh. 52 cards is a card deck. 78 cards. I said that and I was like, nope, nope. Okay. 78 cards. And you'll find some tarot decks that like kind of take liberties with the how many cards there are, but typically there are 78 cards and they're broken up into two sections, the major arcana and the minor arcana. And
Okay.
the major arcana um are big life events. It's essentially the archetypes of our life experience.
Okay.
And so it starts with it's 0 to 21, but it starts with the fool. And when you have fool energy, that's like you don't know what you don't know, so you're just gonna jump in. Remember when you before you started a business and you're like,
Well, this will
I
be
think
done.
I could do this. This is gonna be easy. And then 5 years down the road, you're like, man, if I had known what this would then, I would have never done it. That's the blessing of the fool. That's the energy of the fool, the beginner's mindset, this naivety, but like in a way that it's like, let's just do it. Let's just try and see what happens.
Yeah.
And then we have the magician, and that's like bringing things into, oh, sorry, my computer like shut down. And I was like, did I lose everybody? Sorry.
Well.
We're fine. We're good. So the magician is this like bringing it into the physical form. And then we have the high priestess, which is a deep connection to spirituality. And then we have, so it kind of goes through these different archetypes that we work with in our lifetimes. Think about the times when you were deeply spiritually connected. That is very much high priestess energy. There are times when it's like life is just going at a rapid rate and you're working towards something and willpowering something, and that's the chariot. And then there's times in your life when it feels like you're just watching everything just crumble in front of you, and you have literally you have no control over it, but you just get to watch it happen and then you get to respond. Well, that's tower card energy. So these are anytime major arcana cards come up or from 0 to 21, there are these energies of big life archetype energy.
Mhm.
And so when things happen in my life, I'll be like, "Oh my goodness, that was totally a tower card moment. Oh, that was the moon." Like it's so as you kind of get to know them.
Mhm.
And you could honestly just work with the major arcana. You could, if you wanted to, just pull out those 22 cards and and get to know them. I have a mentor, she meditates with one a week
Hmm.
and like as like a guide for the
Mhm.
week. So,
Okay.
there's definitely different ways to work with them. And then the second half or the minor arcana work through, and this is kind of where we see the similarities in the face cards. They're pip cards, and so there it goes from 0 to 10 with a suit, not 0 to 10, 2 to 10, excuse me.
Okay.
Well, there's an ace in there
Yeah.
too,
Yeah. Yeah.
but um, in a specific suit, and then there's court cards. So that's the page or the jack, right? The knight, queen, and king. And you'll find that different authors will call them different things, but essentially there's the numbered cards and there's the court cards. And those are all like minor life events and they kind of help tell the story. So with working with tarot, there is this like, okay, let's build the story. Let's see the story. Let's see how they engage and interact with each other. And as you're pulling cards and looking at the different cards and the symbolic nature and even, I mean, you can get into you. The best part is my my dad, when he passed away, I remember my sister Googling, what does it mean to be human? And weird question, right? And and really to be human just means to make meaning of things. And
Mm,
I loved that definition because we are so often making meaning of things. And so even when we are like, that means nothing, we made a meaning of it, right? So
mhm,
that's what I love so much about tarot is it's like, okay, how can I see that this one card, what the message from this one card, and then when I zoom out and I see what it's paired with, okay, how does this whole thing make meaning? And so it's there's and the best part is there's no wrong answers. And for my inner self, like
mhm,
that was something really hard to get over, but also liberating because it
mm,
was like I get to interpret this and make meaning of this in how it works for me. And um and it's not wrong. So, and I get to decide if I want to work with that energy or if I want to shift it because I still have my free will. And that's the other thing people will often ask like, well, how does it even work? Well, we're all frequency, we're all energy. And so what the life trajectory that we're on right now, where this is going right now, there is energy for that. And so the cards just pick up on that projected energy and tells the story. And you get to decide, okay, I like this story. Let's keep going with this. Or it's like, not feeling this. And then you can decide to change your mind, shift, make a new decision, and start a new projected direction.
mhm.
So, energetic projection or direction.
Yeah, just shifting your energy and focus
Yeah,
your attention so that your outcome is different. And then you
yeah,
attract different stuff, experiences.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that covered my question of like what is Oracle versus Tarot. And I was just thinking, so I did ask like how you reconciled that, but it sounds like it really came from a place of like when you started to where it came into your life, it sounds like it just really resonated with you and made sense to you. So you just started working with it, and I think back, and I really had a very similar experience of like reading some books and stuff and going, I really like this author. And then I was at a gem store and they had some Oracle cards. And I was like, I know her name. And I was like, ooh, I think I want to buy some. I don't even know. Maybe I'm gonna just buy them. But I was like, oh, but they're Oracle, so I can do that. And just went off of what felt good. I was like, well, of course, if it's like purple or really colorful or sparkly, I'm probably gonna want that one. So I that's how I chose my first uh deck of cards. And then I I got a few, not very many. And the funny thing is I bought a box of cards and I got home and I remember opening them and realizing they were tarot cards.
Oh
And
no.
I was like, oh no. And like I tried reading, I was like, this isn't working for me. And I like put them away.
I love
And
it.
I was nervous and I just felt like it wasn't resonating with me. And so I just put them away. And then later, time passed and I had had other people do readings with the tarot cards in it and was like, oh, okay, this actually reminds me of a deck of playing cards, which I know that they are very similar in a lot of the cards. Um, and I just started to get a little bit more curious. And so then I opened that box back up and like kind of dove into it, but it was very overwhelming to me. I didn't understand major arcana. I didn't understand. It was very overwhelming to me. So I just didn't really dive into it. It's even now, I'm still trying to learn. Like, I don't know all the energies behind all the cards. I'm getting there, but like,
Yeah.
I know the tower and some of those cards, but like when it gets into what do you call it? Like the different, you
The
know,
pick cards.
the ones with the suits, the different suits and stuff. Like I'm just now going, oh yeah, those kind are usually like about this kind of energy. So I'm
Yeah.
still, I would say like I feel like I'm in like junior high, with them or something.
I
So
love it.
where I use the Oracle cards all the time. But I like to actually choose a deck of cards to use for the year. And um, and then I was told, this was one of my questions. I was told by someone that you're not supposed to buy a tarot card deck set, whatever, that you should be given them as a gift.
Yeah,
And I wanted to ask, is that true? And is that the same of Oracle cards, or like what are your thoughts around that? Because um,
I have
I
thought.
never felt like I resonated with the set that I bought. I really still didn't. And then I was gifted a set at my retreat experience, and I've just been obsessed ever since. And it's been a very interesting learning.
Mm.
And then I gave that deck as a gift, and that person loves the deck that I
Oh,
gave her. So I was like, is it true?
I
Like,
love that. I love that so much. There is I mean my thoughts around it are if it's holding you back from getting one because you're waiting for somebody to gift you one. I
Mhm,
don't think like I don't I actually think that there is a little bit of control in that concept of like, oh, don't you can't get one until you're given one
mhm,
because of like, oh, then we won't have as much like circulation of like people just getting their own kind of thing.
mhm,
Again, the fear, it like is it coming from a place of fear and control, or is it coming from a place
mhm,
of
mhm.
experience and connection and things like that? So if you're like, oh, I really would love to get into this, but I can't because no one's given me it one yet. Go buy yourself one. Go, you have your higher self give you one. Like get on a
Yeah.
website that has them and feel into that and buy one as a gift for yourself.
Okay.
Um, but I do love the circulation of giving and receiving because yeah, I have probably 50 decks on my wall. I have probably more in a box that I don't use. And so it would be really great to pass those on, to let them have
Mhm.
more life. And so
Yeah.
I love that idea for sure. But I would just say, what's the intention behind it?
Okay. I like that answer. I do think about like for me, I literally woke up one probably about a year ago and just heard you need to go buy a set of Oracle cards. And I was like, that's weird. And then the plans I had canceled, and I was like, okay. So then I was like, I got in my car and started driving. I was like, I don't even know where I'm going. Like, I don't even know if any stores are open yet. And so I just got on my phone and was like, stores, and there was one open. And so I drove across town with my daughter-in-law, and I went into this store, and that whole day ended up just having all sorts of crazy things. But when I was at the store, I literally picked up every set and held it and muscle tested, and I kept getting no, and I was picking by things that I was visually attracted to, and I kept getting no's, and I literally got down to the last deck, and it was like greens and browns and yellows, and you're not gonna find
Not
those
your,
colors in my house.
yeah, not your
And
best.
I was like, so I picked it up and I got a yes, and I remember saying out loud, really? What? I don't even, I'm not even, what? And I was like, okay, whatever. So I took them with, and then while I was in that store, I found this newspaper that had like resources and articles in there for people who sell things, teach classes, do Reiki, all sorts of stuff. And there was an article in there about this lady who did biophoton therapy. Elizabeth, shout out to her, Milano Wellness, but she wrote an article about how she had celiac disease and how she healed herself with this biophoton treatment. And I was so desperate and was like, it's worth a try. So I reached out to her and then so I met her and then we started talking and then she's like, I think you need to meet one of my other clients. And so she introduced me to Christina and then that I ended up meeting you guys. And I just think it's funny that I woke up and heard go buy this Oracle deck, but that led to me finding this huge part of my tribe of people that I love to be around and feel so welcomed and supported by. And it was all because I woke up and heard, go buy a deck of cards.
Erica, that that is
Crazy.
miracles. I love the
I wouldn't have met you if I got
no.
up and got those cards that morning.
And what a joy you are. And I feel so, I know, I love this. I love it so much because I will say, I feel like in the last couple of years only, I've been way, especially because there has been some repercussions from being into cards and tarot and astrology in the religion,
Mhm.
and ultimately there was I have left. Ultimately there has been a releasing of, and more along the lines of I I have appreciated where it got me in my life, and
Mhm.
then I got to a point where new things were coming into my life that felt very aligned, and
Mhm.
I was being, for lack of a better word, witch hunted because of it in
Mhm.
within the religion, and being disciplined, but yet it was very interesting because no one was asking me. They were just telling me. And I kept saying, are you curious enough to understand?
Mhm.
Can I explain myself? And the answer was always no.
Mhm.
And I got to a point where I was like, okay, what I have, who I am, what I know, my gifts and talents here are not valued. And so I did release that part of my life, and it was really scary because that's religion is a very big community, right?
Mhm.
Like that is community.
Yeah.
And so I was very, very nervous to do that, especially because my husband still believes, my children still attend, like there is still this. And I felt this scary, scary disconnect. And but as soon as I did, my soul people kept like started coming in what feels like now in hindsight droves, and and always in the most amazing ways, always in the ways that it's like, oh, I did listen and follow within my own intuition. I
Mhm.
followed that and I met people, and not just met people, but like now I like people who I genuinely forever am connected with and adore completely and
Yeah.
trust so deeply.
Yeah.
So,
It's such a cool uh thing to like look back at those trails, that you follow. And, I just think even like when the day evening I met you, I walked into the room, Christina had invited me to something, and I walked in and there was a room full of people, and I remember being super drawn to you, your sister, and Dana. And I knew that she had partners, but I didn't know anything more than that. I didn't know who you guys were at all. And I was so like, there was this magnet for me. And then when she started introducing me to each of you, I was like, whoa, like my knower knew. Like, and so I was drawn to you guys. I just thought how cool it was that it was so apparent, like that match that when you meet someone where you feel like you match vibrationally, like there is such a magnetic
mm,
pull. It's
yes.
powerful.
Yes,
And
and so if you get yourself out of the way of and let yourself be pulled, you'll
mm,
be pulled
oh
for sure.
yeah. Yeah. And yeah, yeah, I think the more you practice acting on that, the more that voice gets louder and it gets easier to hear that guidance and what I like to call our knower. It gets easier to hear that voice for sure. Okay, I was going to ask you this.
Okay.
So, are you aware of them using these sorts of tools in biblical times or like in the Bible? Are there stories that you're aware of where they use tools like tarot or other ways of calling divination or, divining knowledge or getting clarity.
Yeah. Oh, I wish I was as big of a biblical scholar. So, ironically enough, my husband has like the brain for like remembering scripture and recalling like, oh yeah, here it would say this. But I mean, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, the easiest one to go to is astrology. And because there was, I mean, the wise men are astrologers. The
Oh,
when they talk about the signs in the heavens, it is literally watching the stars, the astrological, the planets move, all of the things. So so astrology is all over the Bible. And ironically, it also still in today's religious nature gets a bad rap, but yet
but it was very present. I can think of like a lot of the kings, like David, like they leaned on people that had spiritual gifts, prophecy, and things like that, where, I'm like, isn't that kind of the same thing? Like, so in my head, uh Jesus is born, dies, goes to heaven. So then all the spiritual, like all that just went away. Like we can believe in angels, but and those sorts of miracles, and we can believe in the miracle of him with fish and all these miracles and things, but then it just all stops. Like there's no more paranormal, there's no more miracles, there's no more, like it's only through this one route. It's not
yeah.
all this, it's not accessible to everybody. It's a divine few or whatever. Um, yeah. So
Well, and it's interesting because in Mormonism, actually, there is the belief that there is personal revelation, that you do have access to the spiritual gifts.
mhm.
However, it's contained in like, oh, you only have that if your answer is one of the answers that we allow you to have. Like
Okay.
if it's outside of this box, then it's most likely not from God, kind of thing.
Okay.
So they do, which actually probably was a benefit for me because there was this encouragement of personal revelation. There was this encouragement of connecting personally to God. And so as I was doing it, but going through the quote unquote wrong way, um, there was there was disciplinary stuff, and I was told that I couldn't access God because I was using tarot. And I asked, okay, well, do you want to understand what tarot is? And that's when they told me no. And
Mhm.
that's when I was like, okay, I I was um on the fence, honestly. I was 1 foot in, 1 foot out in that regard because of my family, because my husband and my children. And then as soon as that happened, I was just like, you know what? I really think that this was kind of a tower moment, honestly, if we want to talk about the tarot. A tower moment where it was like, hey, April, it's okay. It's okay to have appreciated this for what it was for you. And like, what do you really believe? Do you
Mhm.
really believe in a father, parents? Like, and it really came down to me. Like, as a parent, I can't even imagine saying to one of my children, sorry, unless you do XYZ, I will never see you again. I just can't. It's something I just can't do. So I realized that my own relationship with God had turned inside. My foundation, which was once my religion, was now inside of me. And so it didn't matter if they removed my membership. It didn't matter if they told me I couldn't access God. I already did. I already did. I already was. I already am. So it,
You got the direct line.
yeah, yeah. So it became this like, okay, okay, it's time to move on.
Yeah.
So,
Wow. Well, I definitely kind of had to come to my own epiphanies too, around some of that kind of stuff, a little differently, but just that I realized that God was still very present in my life, whether I was attending church regularly or not, that
Mhm.
I was like, okay, the love I have for my kids, like, would not change if they didn't show up at church every Sunday. And if God loves me even more, then why would he be like, this is the only way I'm going to love you, as if you attend and participate? Like, like, then I'm like, what about people who've never even had access? Like, they burn in hell. Like, if he loves them, why would that be how he structured things? And so it just started to make me really wonder and
Yeah.
start to ask my own questions and things. And the thing that has always just been the overarching theme for me is, if God is love, what does that look like lived out? And I have experienced God's love so much in my life, and I know what it feels like, and I trust it and I believe it. And so to me, that's the filter. Like, if you're telling me this, I'm going to put it through the filter of, is that based in fear or love? Because God is love, he's not fear.
Mhm.
So if you're trying to shame me or control me, that's not love. So that's not of God. Like, so just making that my filter.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate that I was introduced to having a relationship with a higher power through
Yeah.
the church. I love the values I learned. Like, I love so much about it. But I think there's more out there.
Yeah.
And that sometimes the tools that we can use for ourselves, um, we're maybe villainized, like you said, because it gives us more power to have our own access in our own relationship. And I just always knew, like, that I had my own relationship. Like, I didn't need anybody else. That was always just, I always felt this, like, no, I have my own special relationship. I don't.
Yeah.
So I love that. I feel like I'm starting to discover these other tools that feel actually for me kind of playful and fun, and like ways to affirm that I am following how
Mhm.
I'm being led, So I
Yeah.
will pull a card and then I'm like, yep, that's exactly what I felt like I heard when I was in meditation and praying this morning, and
Yeah.
it's like an affirmation. I'm on the right path and makes me feel good about where I'm at.
Yeah, I often tell people the cards either clarify or confirm. They never really come out of left field of like, what? I
Yeah.
guess I have to change my whole life. It's usually like something you already know is just clarifying it or just confirming it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and you know what is interesting? I mean, both of our trajectory was ultimately away from our religion. And I think that that's what's scary to a lot of people to start
Yeah.
using tools but I don't think it has to be that way because I think there's an evolution. I think we are on the cusp of a little bit more understanding and acceptance and awareness around things because even with some of my children, it was actually really sweet in their church class, one of the gifts that the teacher gave for Christmas was essentially a card deck. I kid you not. But it was pictures and quotes from Jesus, but it was on cards with a little card holder. And I was like, oh, you got an oracle deck. Like, what a beautiful thing at church. I was like, if they had any idea what what this was patterned after. But it's of course, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Like, why not use that? Because ultimately, cards are just a tool,
Yeah.
just like pendulums, just like scriptures, honestly,
Mhm.
just like a really good conversation. Like sometimes you can be praying and then have a conversation with a friend, and that's the answer to your prayers,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So,
Hmm.
or a billboard that is
Yeah.
on the
Someone's
freeway.
license plate says something, and you're like,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, it's the same. It's within that same realm. And
Yeah.
so it doesn't mean that like, oh, you go down the path of cards, you're going to lose your religion. Not at all. It's
Yeah.
more just like where has your foundation been? And if it's always been within yourself, then it probably will become more solidified in yourself. If it was outside of yourself, you might find a turning inward. But
Hmm. Yeah. Well, and there is a book that I heard on another podcast, and it was True Stories of the Psychic and Paranormal Phenomena in the Bible, is the name of the book. And I
What?
started to read, but I got distracted. But anyways, so I know that there's people that have gone and like studied and given examples of like all the occurrences that are in there. But so I just want to throw that out there. I'm going to put that in the show notes too. But I
Yes.
wanted to ask, how do you feel? I feel like you've answered this, but how do you feel like you've most benefited? Would it be that you've been able to turn within to have your access?
Yeah. Honestly, so for me, it just felt very natural. And again, it probably had a lot to do with my affinity towards art history and that training that I had in college. And who knew that my college education would actually make me a tarot card reader?
I bet your
I
parents
think
didn't guess that.
it's true. So, but like for example, my mom, when I tell you she has broken a lot of generational patterns, she has. She's an energy worker and she has been for a long time. And so she has been on the fringe and ultimately enter like given permission to like try things, try like work through like yeah, be open to new things. So she's a lifelong learner, and I remember being in high school and her reading a book on quantum physics and coming in and, after hanging out and coming in to say goodnight, and her being like, hold on, sit down, listen to this, what this says. What do you think about it? And I remember being so impressed that she would ask me my opinion
Mhm.
on this like big philosophical thought
Yeah.
that I think it opened up me to look outside the box or think outside the box or or wonder what my own thought processes were, not just regurgitating what others had told me.
Yeah.
So, which was a beautiful thing. And so she's been an energy worker and has been for a lot of years, but I was never drawn to that. I've tried things, I've been trained in things, and it never really clicked. And then, but as soon as cards came in, it was just like I couldn't get enough. And it was clearly, I have a whole bunch of on my wall.
Yeah.
They're and every time there's a sell, I'm like, how many and who am I? Who's coming home with me? So, but the funny thing is I've purchased a few decks for my mom, and my mom just cannot connect with them. So, isn't that funny? We just sometimes it's just
Yeah.
like a matter of working with things, and it doesn't mean that I like it goes through phases. And so I'm always open to trying new things, like going back to things that I've had before
Mhm.
and like just I feel like there's always opportunity to up level with everything.
Yeah.
So,
No, 100%. Um, I was going to ask also, is there what issues or concerns, like if someone's thinking about tiptoeing around on this, what are some things they should consider or any suggestions for starting to dip your toe in the waters of using the cards?
yes. Oh, that is such a good question. And I would say, in fact, one of the great trainings that I highly recommend. And maybe I can get you the link for it that you can put in the show notes because it's a workshop done by Lee Harris, who's
Oh,
a channeler. Are
yeah.
you familiar with him?
Yeah.
Okay. I loved this workshop so much because ultimately he was talking about channeling, but I think it works through and really connecting with guides because I think it works through all the spirituality, like any
Oh,
tool
okay.
you're using, any guide you're working with,
Hmm.
because just like anything, any relationship that you have, there is a opportunity for boundaries, for lessons, for things like that. Because we have tools doesn't mean that I would just say if you're finding that the cards told me or my guide said or something where it's like you're not taking responsibility for it like if this makes sense like if you are diverting your power to something outside of you ever
Yeah.
then I would be cautious of that. I would question that.
Hmm.
So even if you are getting an intuitive hit from your guides, and even if you're hearing them and they're saying something, question them. Honestly, if it, especially if it's out, if it's not something you're comfortable with, or, and again, the cards can bring up things, and if you're like, I'm not loving this, we still have our own agency. We still have
Yeah.
the free will. We
Yeah.
Nothing is set in stone. So
Hmm.
you get to choose and nothing out like to, yes, I would just say be cautious of giving your power away
Okay.
and everything.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, that's great. That's a good one. And then we'll find that resource for Lee Harris.
yeah.
Okay. And I was just gonna say, like, are there any resources that you would suggest for learning more? So you just gave one. And then I was just gonna say, would that be you too? Like, is that something you lead into? Do you do anything with that, or is it more that you do readings with them?
Yeah, I do more readings. Oh well, okay, here's what actually really helped me learn.
Okay.
You ready for this?
Okay.
I started pulling cards for people on my socials. Every month,
Ah.
on the first of the month, I'll put a question box on my Instagram/Facebook and say, hey, if you want a message for the month, put your handle here. And I have
Mm.
anywhere from 30 to 50 people. And it is, so it's a personalized reading. And I've been doing it for now a full 2 years. I'm into my third year of doing this. And the last 2 years, I've done the same tarot deck, and it because I really wanted to understand tarot. I was in the same boat as you. It was like it was confusing. There were so many like I did not understand it, and it would take me a while, but I saw it as a practice because I pulled the card and then at the beginning, when I was first learning, I would read the guidebook. Well, I would look at it and fill into it and see what kind of came up for myself. And then I would open up the guidebook and kind of get some reassurance there. And then I would respond, like record my response. And I had 1 minute. I had 1 minute to get like, this is your
Information
message.
out.
And it really actually helped me really develop a relationship with the tarot in a profound way.
Cool.
And so that was that. And again, I showed up. I showed every month. And about a year ago, I started to say, hey, if you'd like to donate, here's my Venmo for my time and energy, which is beautiful because then there is an energy exchange there. And sometimes some people literally but a Venmo $2 and sometimes it's like 25.
Yeah.
Which is so nice and beautiful. And and it all adds up and that was really sweet but ultimately that helped me um with my with
About
learning
the
it.
cards. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I
So
think for me, it's been that daily use. And also, I have found people that have YouTube channels and they'll do
yeah.
it according to like your birth sign, like so if you're a Scorpio or a Aries or whatever, they'll do like a monthly reading and they'll pull the cards and read it based on your sign, things like that. And so I started listening to some of those. And that is when I started going, oh, every time they talk about the tower card, they say this. So then I was like, oh, there. And then I realized there were suits. So I was like, just listening to them talk about it, like casually helped me too, because I'm not one who's going to sit down and sign up for a course.
No, for
And
sure.
like, I'm like,
For sure. I
mm.
know that those of us that love to have the certification behind our brain are no, and I love that so much because people do interpret things differently and
Yeah.
you'll find what you start to how your communication starts to come in. For me, it's like I'll just remember stories I've heard or books I've read or um experiences that I've had that I'm like, "Oh, this is what this card is telling me." And
Mhm.
um so for me, I realize again this is only for the YouTubers, but if you'd like to go, I didn't even realize again, this is my Virgo-ness, but also like kind of fun. And it's still an ongoing thing. I decided when I first got into cards, I'm telling you, not even when I was good at cards. This is when I first started into cards because I was like, I want to understand what the cards mean. And so I bought a little journal, and it actually has become like a grimoire or whatever that is. But um, at the beginning, I have a deck attunement to attune myself to the deck before, like a prayer from Rebecca Campbell. And then um I had like I wrote a prayer to myself, like thank you, like in my connection to my guides. Again, I never look at these, but then I started into like the Fool. I put in the Fool card and I put a picture from my favorite tarot deck. And then like I will, even to this day, a new idea of what the Fool means will pop in and
Oh, okay.
I'll write it in here. And so
Cool.
it is like literally a breakdown of the
Wow.
tarot.
That's awesome. If
Fine.
you're just listening on like Spotify or whatever, you should probably jump on. If this is
Yeah,
something you're interested in, you need to jump on YouTube and watch this video because that's so cool.
it
That is
is, and it's fun.
awesome. I
And you
love
can
it.
see that like this one doesn't have any, but this one is like full of notes. So
Yeah.
it's still a work in progress. And then it's kind
Yeah.
of fun because it went to, I went to the end of the tarot, and then I started writing questions and making spreads. So
Oh,
I
wow.
now have like
That's
spreads in
so
here,
cool.
um
Wow.
and I'll press flowers from specific occasions and then glue them on in here and stuff. So it really has become just a like a my tarot. Honestly, I'm like, this is my legacy. I really hope one of my children is like, I want mom's tarot journal when she.
Aw, that's cool. I really think I might play around with not that, but some sort of version of that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to ask, how has this brought you joy in your life? Because we're all about joy here. So how has this
Yes.
brought joy into your life?
Oh, seriously, Erica, it changed my life because I was seeking a way to raise myself above the frequency that was the that I was being presented with, and that's exactly what it did. It literally transcended me into a new, like, serious, just joy. I have yet to come across a card deck, a card message, even a tricky one that doesn't allow some sort of optimism or some sort of ability to look at life of like, okay, we got this, we can do this. So it has brought so much joy in my life to use decks. And really when things are or cards, and when things are heavy and hard, it's like the easiest thing to turn to because it lightens the mood so quickly.
I also think that at least the one that that light seers one, I think that even if it comes up over something challenging, it always is reframed in a growth
Yeah.
kind of mindset, or like there was a lesson here, or how can you grow from this, or how can you shift uh, into a better place from this. It's very more like hopeful, love based instead of like encouraging fear or anger or stewing in the thing. It's
Yeah.
like very much pointing you um, to a more
Yeah.
positive path. So
Yeah.
even just a couple weeks ago, I was going through it and everything I was pulling very much aligned to that, but it was very like, well, this is, you can't expect everything to always be like, everything's fantastic, that's perfect, like there's going to be these times, and that's where you get to go in and practice being with yourself, practice your feelings. It was like all these different lessons around moving through a challenging time. And it was just a good reminder. And I appreciate that about the ones that I've worked with have been more of that kind of a mindset.
Yeah.
So I definitely follow what feels good. So there are people that I've heard or come across on social media or on YouTube, and I immediately do not get that feeling. There's maybe a lot of, I'm going to call it fear mongering, like feeding into what I feel is more seen on the news and things kind of feeding in and pointing you towards that chaos and fear. And I'm like, nope, not for me. So I think just using our intuition and listening when we are tapping into these things and like doing what feels right for us. And like you said, your mom's like doesn't resonate with her, but she probably has her own tools. I know people that like me, I love to use muscle testing to make decisions. And then I have people who are like, I never get anything. Like it's not clear. That's not a good way for me to figure things out. So I think we all have our own, it's can be fun to just like explore and find the tools that work for us to help us be tuned into that higher power, what's best,
Yeah.
and like listening to our own intuition and really tuning in to align with our whole path here, our life that we're intending to live.
Yeah, I love what you were saying about like be interested in the messages, like how the messages are coming through. And you're right, the light seers, which I love so much. Chris Ann is the author, and she was one of the instructors on the certification course that I took. And
Mm,
she was talking about this deck in particular, and she said the whole time she was working on this deck, the mantra that just was like on a continuous loop through her head was let it be healing, let it be healing. So, so yes, but there's decks out there that are for shadow work. So obviously there's going to be like shadow, um,
hmm
deep messages on that. And so it's really like, what are you wanting to work with and how?
hmm
And and be interested in how the message is coming through because if it is soliciting fear and creating, more turmoil, I would be wary of that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so this is what I like. I like to ask everybody who comes on. I would I would like to ask you to define joy. How do you define joy?
I define joy as um honestly as being present.
Mm,
Um it's eh, like yeah, it's in the subtle noticing of what's in front of me right now. And because I can be very, very future focused. I can be so far ahead of myself and and that feels exciting and fun to plan and all of the things. But I find that true joy of when I can actually feel what it feels like to have joy, to have that heart opening to know that everything's okay because at this point I'm alive, everything's okay. Like nothing is too desperate or hard or whatever. So I find that yeah, being in the present moment,
I love
which
that.
is easier said than done in my
Yes, yes, it is. I think about that. Like, if I'm so busy going, I'm probably gonna not notice the eagle in the sky or the flower or the, whatever. I'm not gonna see those little things. So, just that presence allows you to take that in. So that totally makes sense. I love it. It's so fun to hear everybody has a little different, you know, take on what joy means to them. So I love asking that. So then I just want to invite you to share like what you're working on or what it is that you offer around your astro coaching, astrology, card reading, things like that. Where can we find you? That kind of stuff.
Thank you. Yes. So Um, I I do one-on-one sessions that I call astro coaching because I do use your astrology charts. When I say pluralized, it's more just like if you're wanting a reading for your child. I do a lot of parenting readings, 5 kids. Like I get it. Sometimes you just need a manual for your child to be like, help me understand this kid. They have one. It's their astrology chart. So astrology charts, human design, gene keys. I do bring in some of those, but more is just to help you understand yourself. So it's not necessarily like a teaching, but more of like, hey, this is what I'm seeing. This is how I would interpret it. And then cards as well. So I love doing midlife readings. I love doing parenting readings. I love doing relationship readings, money, career, like life purpose kind of readings, even just like what the heck is happening right now kind of readings because that,
That
that can be like
happens
right?
too.
I don't know if I need this or that kind of reading. Like I just know that things are happening and I can't figure it like what, please someone, something's got to be going on. Love doing those readings. Those happen all the time. And you can find me like aprilascending.com.
Okay.
It will link to my scheduling software and my social is aprilascending.com or excuse me, April Ascending on Instagram and TikTok. And then And then how you know me is I actually have a business with business partners that is fantastic. And this is where the majority of my time is spent in the wisewomanworld.com. And we do business coaching, we do retreats, we have a community, a soul purpose community, and we even have a $8 a month subscription with new and full moon workbooks, and that you can work with the cycles of the moon. So that's where I am most of my time. So working with my business partners, where there's four of us over there, and so yes.
Goes over there making magic happen. Every time I sit down and do those workbooks, something weirdly magical happens. And I just have to share this super fast.
I want to know.
There was one for a full moon, and it wasn't this last one, it was the one before. And 2 days before that, I bought an orange about a week before, and I had it on the counter. My husband was like, "Are you gonna eat that?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's mine. Don't touch it." It was like a joke we had. And then I brought it and set it on the table next to the couch, and I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna eat it tonight." I had the paper towel and the orange sitting there, and then something happened. I didn't eat it, and then the next day I was sitting doing the workbook, and it was like, "Okay, now go find a tasty orange." And I looked, and it was sitting right next to me. And I was like, what?
That's
And
amazing.
then it said, and if you happen to have an orange candle. So I go in my pantry. I had two yellow and one orange birthday candle left.
Gosh,
I
I
was like,
love it.
what? I was like, Mitch, you have got to hear what just happened. So I even found like that felt magical somehow, like that.
Yeah,
I had the night before set it there so that when I was sitting doing it, I was like, oh,
ready for
yeah,
you.
yesterday
Ready for
itself
you.
was providing what I needed for tonight, and I didn't know.
I love it. And actually, I'm super excited for the next two because this is March and we're coming into eclipse season. So I'm actually going to tweak all the workbooks to reflect more of the eclipse energy and excited about it. So,
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to it. It's totally been a great tool and a cause to stop in my daily routines. I do journal, but like sitting and like there's questions in each workbook that I have found to be really helpful. I've tried some other ones and I'm like, nah, I just keep coming back because I always get some sort of gems and clarity out of it. So I very much have enjoyed how powerful it's been for me to use it. So I encourage everybody to check that out too. So that's the work with the moon,
yes.
right? So we're gonna put all the things, all the context will be in the show
Beautiful.
notes because it's all good stuff. It's all magical. So I just want to
Thank
thank you
you.
so much for coming on and talking about something that can be very divisive, but also can be super fun and insightful.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Erica. I enjoy you so much.
We always have lots of laughs together for sure.